been speaking about Moshe Rabbeinu all this time. In understanding leadership, now it's time to move on. One of the fixtures in Klal Yisrael that is eternal is Malchus, the monarchy, and especially Malchus based David. So to begin with, the concept of a king in Klal Yisrael. Is really one who represents the nation, both to the nation and to the world. The Torah commands him to be humble. He's got to have a Sefer Torah that he carries with him all the time, another one that he's got at home. And there's a mitzvah of Som Tosim Alecha Melech, place a king upon you, which is the mitzvah to respect the king appropriately. We find it interesting, halacha. The king, unlike a parent, unlike a Rebbe, the king cannot forego his respect. He also is bound by that mitzvah of Som Tosim, of showing the appropriate honor for the king. Meaning it's nothing personal, it's not his. It's not his to forego. This is a fixture in Klal Yisrael, representing the nation, and not about him as a person. Very much what we were discussing about Moshe Rabbeinu, the whole concept of humility. But there we were talking about in terms of a cause. Here we're talking about even in terms of what he represents. The king too has to show respect for the position of king and doesn't have the right to forego the honor. The origins of Malchus based David are from Yehuda. They're descendants of Yehuda. And what do we find about Yehuda in the Chumash? The theme is very clear. We find Yehuda, the time of the story, if we'll call it that, of Yosef and his brothers. Were they considered killing him? And Yehuda says something very interesting. What will we gain from killing our brother and covering up his blood? Simple terms, what does that mean? What do we gain? If you read the psukim further, it sounds so much like what he's saying is we're better off selling him than we are killing him. At least this way we make some money. Which doesn't sound so good. Chaim Shmulevitz, Zichron L'Vracha, used to put the emphasis in this pasuk on the words V'chisinu es damo. And what Yehuda was telling his brothers was that, listen, if we kill Yosef, we will never be able to take responsibility for it. We will never be able to face Yaakov, our father, and tell him we killed Yosef. We're going to have to cover up for it. You can't do something that you can't take responsibility for. As right as what you are doing may be, as much as you're convinced that this is what has to be done, if you can't take personal responsibility for it, if you're going to have to hide behind something else, then it just can't be done. Chaim Shmulevitz said it with regard to lots of things, but there was one comment he always used to throw in. There's not all as much going on in this part of Jerusalem. However, I'm sure you've noticed that throughout the Haredi neighborhoods of Yerushalayim, there are always big signs. Always signs up, there's always something doing. There's always something that people are unhappy about, protesting about. So Reb Chaim used to say, the first thing you do if you want to read one of those signs is look at the bottom of it. Is it signed, or does it say there Hama'orim, which is a word for those who want to let everybody know? You know, signed by concerned citizens. If there's no name there, don't read it. If someone's not willing to take responsibility for it, ignore. Ever get any anonymous hate mail? Not that you should be affected by these things in the first place, but if it's anonymous, don't even bother. If someone can't take responsibility for it, it's worth nothing. But good, that's not really what we're discussing. What we're discussing is the concept of responsibility. That is, that responsibility doesn't just mean that you realize something has to be done and then you take responsibility for it. What it means is that every time you make a decision, you understand that that means taking responsibility for your decision. It means that you understand that you're accountable and that you can't hide behind anyone else. You can't deny, you can't bend. If you made a decision, you have to stand by it. In the next episode, we find Yehuda, the whole story of Yehuda and Tamar, where Yehuda says, Tzodka mimeni. He takes responsibility. Yes, he says it was me. That's responsibility. You did something that was out of place, embarrassing as it may be. You have to take responsibility for it. Life presents itself with so many different ways that you can hide from taking responsibility. The kingdom in Klal Yisrael has to come from a place of total responsibility. Later in the story of Yosef, where they don't really realize it, but Yosef, second in command in Egypt, demands that they bring Binyamin down to Egypt. And Yaakov Avinu refuses. Till Yehuda takes personal responsibility, he says he's willing to forfeit his olam haba. He's willing to forfeit his share in the world to come if he does not return Binyamin. He takes responsibility for the family. And then, when they're confronted by Yosef, who accuses Binyamin of stealing and wants all the brothers to stay there, it is Yehuda that really confronts Yosef to the point that he had to reveal himself as being Yosef. And in it he states, I took responsibility. And what he's saying is that because I took responsibility, I can stop at nothing. This has to happen. So the cornerstone of kingdom in the Jewish nation is this is the man who is responsible for the nation. It's responsibility. And this is really the sign of leadership. It's not taking on a cause that you're passionate about, although that's important. It's taking on a cause that you feel is so necessary and no one is doing enough about it and you've got to do it. It's a lot different than just being passionate about something. People, depending on your personality, people have passions for all sorts of things. You push, you want to make it happen, it becomes your pet, your baby. That's not leadership. Leadership is feeling that there's something necessary that's being neglected. And you're willing to assume responsibility for it. And assuming responsibility for it means you're going to do whatever it takes. You'll stop at nothing. The general attitude people have is, why me? Why is this my responsibility? Why is it my responsibility? And the answer is, it's everybody's responsibility. Yours too. Parshas Lech Lecha, the Sfas Emes brings the Zohar. Lech Lecha begins with what seems to be a personal prophecy to Avraham Avinu. Lech Lecha mi'artzecha moladcha mi'yisavicha el ha'aretz asher areka. Leave everything that's comfortable. Leave everything that's comfortable and essentially change the world. So the Zohar says that wasn't an individual prophecy to Avraham Avinu. It is a voice that comes down from heaven, a bas kol, to every individual. Avraham Avinu took it personally. He said, that's talking to me. He heard it as Vayomer Hashem al Avram. He heard it as Hashem speaking to him personally. Taking responsibility means you have this feeling that it's got to be done, and that this situation is talking to you, screaming at you, telling you you've got to get it done. Is it talking to everyone else also? None of your business. You see this situation as a personal plea from the Jewish people, from the Creator, personalized with your name in it. This is for you to undertake. Responsibility means understanding this has to be done and it's got to be done. And therefore you'll make it happen. People love doing great things, but people can't take responsibility. People love doing stuff when no one's telling them to do it. This is not just kids. Or perhaps everyone's a kid. We don't like being forced into situations. We don't like being told that this is what you got to do. Responsibility is understanding this has to be done. The situation is screaming out, you've got to do it. So you have to hear it, you have to feel it. Once again, stop at nothing. There are many causes in the world today. There are many needs for the Jewish people. Real responsibility doesn't mean you choose one of them. Real responsibility means that you feel responsible about everything. Where does this most manifest itself? In our davening. When the Anshe Knesset Agdola put together our Shmona Esrei, they gave us a whole list of things that every one of us should be asking for. These requests may or may not be on your priority list altogether. Had you been composing the Shmona Esrei, what would you have put there? There are so many brachas that deal with the Geula. Yerushalayim, the Sanhedrin, Malchus Beis David, Mashiach himself. There's so many things that we're asking for. And they count for so many, so many brachas. Yeah, our health, our finances, they get thrown in there also. Each one gets a bracha. There's so many brachas dealing with what's going to happen in the days of Mashiach. Different details. The Anshe Knesset Agdola want to let us know that every Jew has to understand the real needs of the Jewish people and what we're missing. There's Yerushalayim, there's Avodah, the service in the Beis HaMikdash, there's the Sanhedrin, there's the monarchy, Malchus Beis David. These are all things that should be on everybody's mind. Because if you understand what the Jewish people really need, if you understand the real problems, then these things should bother you. This is every single Jew. You know, one would think you dive into the things that are close to you, that are really hit you hard. Yeah, it'd be nice if Mashiach came, but right now I can't pay my bills. I guess the first bracha should have been pay my bills. But who puts all those other things on their agenda in the first place? The whole idea of davening and the fact that everything's in plural, Lashon Rabin. It means we care for the whole Jewish people, and it has to be bothering us. We have to feel the needs of the entire nation. And in every Shmoneh Esrei, 3 times a day, mention them. Every Jew is supposed to feel the needs of the Jewish people and want to do something about it. And the first thing to do is to approach the one that can make the biggest difference, which is Hashem. If you want to build within yourself a sense of responsibility, understand that that's what we're doing in davening. We're addressing the fact that the Jewish people is in so need of things that are perhaps far from our personal needs. At least the pressing ones on our mind don't include them. Now, if you really feel these things, so of course you start by asking Hashem, but if it bothers you enough, then you've got to do something about it. We're being taught that every Jew is supposed to be responsible. Every Jew is supposed to feel what it is that the Jewish people are going through. Re'ei v'anyenu, which is the suffering of the whole Jewish people. Every one of us is supposed to carry that responsibility. If you truly get the message, I would hope that there's something you want to do about it, more than just davening, which davening is important. But what are you doing to change things? Responsibility doesn't just mean that there's some cause that got you started. Responsibility means a frame of mind. Taking responsibility for the Jewish people, taking responsibility for Klal Yisrael. That's something we're all expected to do. Don't look over your shoulder, don't look at anybody else. Every one of us at a personal level is supposed to be living that way, feeling that way. That's leadership, and really we are a Mamleches Kohanim. We're a nation of leaders. Every Jew is supposed to be a leader in that sense. And if you really get the message, then you will be a leader. Now, responsibility, again, it's a frame of mind. And true, what's expected of us is to take responsibility for the whole of the Jewish people. But like any other character trait, it's not real if it doesn't begin with the smaller stuff. Like taking responsibility for oneself. You're Yeshiva. You have Rabbis. We have a schedule of learning. We have mashgichim guiding you along. I hope you all understand that when you get up there and they ask you why you haven't become the person you could have, and you say, well, listen, my Rebbeim didn't turn me into that person. That's not going to do it. You've got to take responsibility for your own growth. You've got to take responsibility for your learning. Everything you know that you have to know, you have to learn. Whether it's in the schedule or not in the schedule. You don't have enough time. If it's important enough, you'll find the time. This is true of learning. It's true of character development. We've all got to grow. We're all born with midos that need improvement. No one else can take responsibility for that, only yourself. if you don't start with taking responsibility for yourself, then choosing to take responsibility for the Jewish people sounds like it's not coming from this deep place of responsibility, but it sounds like the glamour. It sounds like you like the excitement. You know, you like the sound of it. It's got to begin with being a responsible person. Just taking responsibility for yourself. Taking responsibility for how you spend your money. I know everyone comes in here wondering how they're going to make a living someday. Yeah, it's something you'll have to think about. But the first financial responsibility that you have to deal with is how you spend whatever money you do have. That's responsibility for yourself. Take responsibility for your health. And above all, taking responsibility for juggling all of these things and deciding what will have to give a little bit for the other. Yeah, there are people that are so health conscious in this world that becomes an obsession that takes over their lives. There are other people that are totally irresponsible and don't care about their health. The responsibility to understand that you have so many different responsibilities in life, and unless you affix the right kind of value to each one of them and understand how much time you should be allotting them, then you're not being responsible. Until you understand that, you're not living a responsible life. If it's lopsided, if you're spending all your time dealing with your health or dealing with your supporting yourself, but completely neglect other aspects of your growth, your midos, your relationship with Hashem, your Torah, then you're being irresponsible. The responsibility of really taking full responsibility for yourself. And again, deciding what gives in favor of what and to what degree. That's all a matter of responsibility. So before you talk about the big responsibility, which we've got to, you have to first make sure that you live responsibly yourself. There's so many life decisions you're making at this point in your lives, making sure that you make them responsibly. How long to stay in Yeshiva? What's the next step? When to consider marriage, whom to marry. The majority of people make irresponsible choices in marriage. Responsibility begins with taking full responsibility for every aspect of your life and your growth. Choosing the right people for advice. And really learning to process the advice you get so that you make intelligent decisions on your own. You begin there. If you're a responsible person, and then you accept the responsibility of caring for all the needs of the Jewish people and the things that are burning issues today, then you're a leader. Then you're a leader. So yes, that's what Malchus Beis David is about. Responsibility. The king in the good old days was the one that came out. In front of the nation in battle. He led the nation to battle. You know, there's a big difference between sitting in your office and being the commander-in-chief or being at the front lines. He took personal responsibility for the nation. What he's all about is responsibility. Yes, leadership is built on achrayus. You need the midas of anava, the different things that we spoke about before. But the fiber of leadership is responsibility. It begins by building yourself, taking responsibility for yourself. And it's got to grow all the way to the point of feeling responsible for the entire Jewish nation and seeing to it that you stop at nothing to make sure that the needs of the Jewish people are taken care of. Take this seriously, we'll have great Jewish leaders. Looking forward.